What's up, Waluigi? Trent from Trentendo here. When it comes to Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo has been something of an enigma. Even with announced titles and roadmaps laying out the future of these systems on the Nintendo Switch, we never really know what's actually going to happen. Take, for example, most recently with the Nintendo 64. Over a year ago, they had announced the next lineup of games coming to Nintendo Switch Online service. Yet here we are, waiting for 1080 Snowboarding, the last title to remain on that list. And now, when it comes to even future consoles, you have to wonder, how will Nintendo handle the Nintendo Switch Online moving forward, and what does this mean for other systems currently not on the service, such as the Nintendo GameCube? So today, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we think might happen going forward with Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch's online service. So as we hop into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video so you guys are kept up to date with everything going on here at Trentendo. Let's see if we can't hit 20 likes on this video. Early does help, I appreciate it. And without further ado, let's hop right into this discussion. Now, as I mentioned, Nintendo has been very funny with the way they have updated the systems on this service. And really, it's been that way since the beginning. If you look at the announcement that we got when the original plan for Nintendo Switch Online was announced, we learned that for $20 a month, we would get the opportunity and the ability to play games online, as well as be able to play classic NES and SNES titles that Nintendo would continually update. Now, we really didn't get a ton of idea of what this would mean, how often we would get games, what games would be added, what potential there was for these services on the Nintendo Switch Online. But we were very excited because we got a lot of really good games right off the bat. And I think that for the $20 a month, we have viewed this as a very good deal. You know, we were going to get the ability to play online, which kind of was annoying because they took that away from us, really, because you really had the ability to play online before then for free. But I kind of thought the perk, okay, at least we're going to get something in addition to what they're kind of taking away, and we're going to have these classic games to play. So after that, we would get a steady drip feed of titles that were updated and seemed to keep people semi-happy for the time being. Fast forward a year later, Nintendo announces they're going to add the Nintendo 64 to the expansion pack. To everyone's surprise, I guess, I remember it being leaked out a little bit early. People weren't quite sure if it was actually going to happen. And we were so excited because, at least I was really excited because Nintendo 64 was my childhood platform. I grew up playing the SNES, but I still remember the day when we got the Nintendo 64 and we pulled out Mario Kart Racing, and we pulled out Diddy Kong Racing, and it was such a good experience and I have such nostalgia for the Nintendo 64. And I think that was kind of the big draw to this new expansion pack that they added for Nintendo Switch Online. Now they're going to upcharge us an extra $30 a year, so taking it from 20 to 50, but we were going to be able to play Nintendo 64 games. And to me, that ability alone was worth the $30 a year. But ever since then, we have really been kind of just left in wonder what is actually going to happen for Nintendo 64. For the first little bit, they did drip feed games about one a month, and you could be pretty reliable that Nintendo was going to drop one 64 game each month. Now, they did drop a bunch of games right at the start, which was awesome. I think we had Ocarina of Time, we had Mario Kart, we had Star Fox, we had Mario 64. So we had some really good titles right off the bat to keep us, happy and keep us being able to continue to play the 64 on the service. And then, they updated us once a month. As I said, we got a new title like Majora's Mask, or we got, eventually we got GoldenEye, right? But as they've announced more and more games, they have become less and less reliable on when a game is actually going to drop. Now, most recently, it's probably been about a year, if I'm thinking right, that we got a list of games that was coming to Nintendo Switch Online for the 64. It included Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, the 3 Mario Parties, Excite Bike, 1080 Snowboarding, and people were very excited. These were some of the best games on there, on the 64. But ever since then, Nintendo kind of stopped drip feeding us. Like, what was once a month became once every other month, once every 4 months. And now we find ourselves waiting months on end for a new title with no word from Nintendo on what is actually going on. So the question that, I think we see is, what is Nintendo doing and how are they handling the systems on the online service? And a lot of people were wondering, and we finally did end up getting Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color, and that was kind of another big ad. But even then, they have still not updated us on the 64, and even the titles being added to the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance have been sparse. We don't know what's actually coming or what's going on, and they have failed to really update the SNES and the NES titles for the base tier subscribers. So people have been wondering what is going to happen with the Nintendo GameCube, and I think a lot of us thought that this could potentially be something that comes once the Nintendo Switch 2 is out. Nintendo has talked a lot recently about, the Nintendo account and being able to carry forward purchases on the next platform, and people thinking that we could potentially see GameCube added to the subscribers expansion pack, potentially maybe added even another tier to be able to play GameCube games on Nintendo Switch. Now, the thing that I think about is how has Nintendo handled GameCube games on the Switch already? And I don't know that we're going to see GameCube hit Nintendo Switch Online. So we got to talk a little bit more about this as well. So think about the Nintendo Switch games that are GameCube ports. We had Super Mario Sunshine that was part of the Super Mario 3D All-Stars pack. That was kind of brought up a little bit. They redid a couple things to make it look a little bit nicer, maybe enhance some things, but that was a game that was part of the $60 pack. So in theory, you could think, okay, this game was $20 if you think about it, right? They dropped Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy is all three games for $60. So sure, you could say Mario Sunshine came out for $20. I'll take that. That seems a fair way to look at that to me. Next, we got to think about what other games, so that was kind of the first one that I really think of. The next we got to think of, in my mind, is Metroid Prime Remastered. That game was a $40 release, and it was kind of shadow dropped. Okay, another great game, probably one of the best looking games on Nintendo Switch. They did an excellent job with that. But again, Nintendo showing that this is a game that they will release as a standalone on Nintendo Switch for $40. Then we've also gotten games like Pikmin 1 and 2. Those were I don't even know if those were remastered or redone. They're back on the Switch though, again, as their own title. So I think Nintendo is showing us that they're going to continue to update us with GameCube games, but we're going to get them as standalone titles. Heck, even look at the next most big anticipated game coming to Nintendo Switch, Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. A GameCube game that I'm sure will retail for the full $60 when all is said and done. Yes, the game looks amazing. It's one of my favorite Nintendo games ever, but we have to ask ourselves, why are we getting these GameCube games when we get N64 games and we get SNES games and Game Boy games on the system via the NSO? So Nintendo, this tells me a couple things. One, I think the big thing is that Nintendo values GameCube games differently than they value the rest of their classic library. That last time you think about it, when the GameCube was out, this was the last time Nintendo was the leader in the power area for the gaming system. So they were the forefront of GameCube, PS2, they competed on power. And I think that because of that, there was so many good games on Nintendo, and this was really, if you think about it, it was kind of the golden era for Nintendo up until the Nintendo Switch. If you think about going back in Nintendo's history, the Wii did really well, but it was more the casual audience, right? You had a lot of people that were playing Wii Sports, they're playing the motion control games. The Wii U was an absolute flop. The Switch now has kind of brought back a lot of people to the fold, but it still is, it's more of, you have a lot more families playing. You have a lot less of your hardcore gamers, I would say, as people would think. And whether or not that's true, I'll leave that up to your interpretation, but that is kind of the perception out there right now. So if you think about the classic games, the GameCube is where a lot of people grew up, and there was a lot of really, really good games. Thinking, Mario Kart Double Dash, Metroid Prime, as we mentioned, Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door. You still had a bunch of Mario Party games coming out. You had Pikmin. You had the first Animal Crossing on there. So there's a lot of really, really good titles. And I think that Nintendo is showing that they value those titles as standalone releases. And that's what we continue to see going forward. So I think that as we get ready for Nintendo Switch 2 and we think about what will happen with the NSO service, I don't think that we're going to see Nintendo Switch online, add GameCube games. I think that Nintendo has continued to show us that they value these games differently, and we will get better versions of them, though, hopefully. That could be the one good thing that comes out of this is, yes, we may have to pay for these games a little bit more, but hopefully we can continue to get them for a little bit cheaper. Maybe we do end up getting Paper Mario for $40. I highly doubt it. Maybe because, but maybe they've set that precedent with Metroid Prime. And we continue to hear rumors of additional Game Boy game or GameCube games that will be added to Nintendo Switch, but as standalone releases, as with the Thousand Year Door. We still have hope, and we're hearing rumblings of Metroid Prime 2 coming after Metroid Prime has been added already, and waiting for Metroid Prime 4 to be out. We've heard so many rumors about F-Zero GX remake, about that getting a release on the Nintendo Switch. We're seeing Luigi's Mansion 2, while that is a DS game that's kind of getting redone. Luigi's Mansion coming, potentially we could see a Luigi's Mansion game on Nintendo Switch. And I think that, as we think about too what's kind of led up to this point, this is the end of the cycle of Nintendo. They're showing us that this is the end of the Nintendo Switch as we know it, and they are getting ready to release Switch 2. And by doing this with the GameCube games now, they set the precedent early at the end, early in the Nintendo Switch 2 life cycle by setting it now on the end of the Nintendo Switch life cycle. So once the Switch 2 comes out, we're not expecting to see GameCube added to NSO. We already know that these games are going to get standalone releases on Nintendo Switch. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Do you think this is what Nintendo's doing? What other GameCube games would you love to see come out? As I mentioned, F-Zero GX has been one that's been mentioned several times. The Twilight Princess and Wind Waker double pack ports, whatever you want to call that has been rumored for so long at this point that I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and I don't think those would have been mentioned as early and as often as they had been, had there not been some truth to those. So I could see that still happening as well. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below about, what do you think this means for Nintendo Switch Online, for the GameCube in general as well, if we'll see these games on the NSO, or if they will continue to be standalone releases. So hope you guys enjoyed. Looking forward to getting that conversation going with you down below as well. Hit that subscribe button, like this video on your way out. It really does help. Let's see if we can hit 20 likes, as I said. And until next time, catch you later.